Donc, comme vous avez pu vous rendre compte, il y a quelques soucis et nous allons décaler le souci d'une certaine manière pour le résoudre et nous allons passer à la communication suivante de Ashkenazi de l'Université de Francfort, Fortifying Hierarchy, the Social Function of Southern Levantine Bronze Age Fortification. And I hope you are able to have this presentation.
Okay, can you hear me properly? Okay, great. So hi everybody, and sorry for not being with you in Corsica. I want to speak today about the fortification of the early bronze in the southern Levant, and in which I think there were kind of an exaggerated answer to a minor threat, which was taken as advantage by the leaders in order to get more social power. So next, please. Okay, and next, please. So I want to speak about the early bronze in the southern Levant, which is contemporary Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority. And we speak about I will mainly speak about the early bronze 2 and 3, which started around 3000 BCE and ended around 2400. Next, please. So the period of the early bronze and somehow from the beginning of the first sub-period, the early bronze 1, it's kind of like semi-urban system in which we see a lot of fortifications, several large buildings which supposed to be palaces, and we see that every town, every approach to the question of urbanism and social hierarchy. In some of them, we only see fortifications. Some of them we see fortifications and palaces, and in some of them we only see large temples. Next, please. And it ended at the end of the period with the dark ages of the intermediate Bronze Age, which is kind when the whole system collapsed, only to come back only about 400 years later. So the early bronze is the first period in which we see fortification in the Levant, and the fortification walls usually are built from stone foundation, massive stone foundation, and above it it's a superstructure of dried mud bricks. During the early bronze too, the fortification are pretty thin. The walls are pretty low, and you have a lot of gates and posterns in the wall, and I think it's kind of a more social statement and less than a real fortification. But in the early Bronze 3, the fortification grow much larger, and the minimum is 4 meter wide, and there are fortifications which are 16 meter wide, which means they are much higher. And there are much more defensive features like protected gates and towers. So all of these massive fortifications led to the assumption that the period was a period of violence and endemic warfare between peer polities between the cities. But when I show later, when you test this hypothesis against the available weapons and when you analyze the fortifications, the assumption is not very clear anymore. Next, please. And so when you come to analyze fortification, you need to think about the functions. So they had what I call functional functions, which is of course to defend the city. It also serves as a boundary, as a physical boundary, and control of traffic in and out of the town. But there's also the non-functional functions, which it's image and a symbol of the town for the outside and the inside. It shows also that the town is strong and don't mess with us, because if we can build such strong fortifications, we can probably have a lot of people to fight you. Also, I think there's a possibility that this is the way the town should look like, because some kind of the ideas that probably came from Mesopotamia, exactly the same way that modern cars today still have bumpers, although they are only made of plastic. Also, the process of construction itself consolidate the society. Next, please. So what are the requirements when you come to analyze fortification? What are the requirements for effective fortifications? So first, you want to have a defensible location on top of a mountain or a hill or a ridge, etc. You want the walls to be as short as possible, so you don't need a lot of people to defend them. You want the fortification to be high and to be thick and high enough. You want to have it glacis on the edge, on the hill below the fortification. You want to have parapets and shielded firing platforms in order to the defenders to be able to stand on them and shoot the attackers. You want to have projections like towers or even curves of the wall to eliminate dead spots. And between the towers, it's better to have gaps of no more than 40 meters, which means bow shot, in order to cover fire from one tower to the other. You want the gate to be defended, and not more than one or maybe two gates. And you want to have accessible water source. Next, please. The picture shows a tower at the town of Tel Bet Yerach. You will see it again. We also want to look for evidence of siege warfare, like siege engines, like ladders and battering rams or siege poles. You want to see evidence of fighting over fortification, like destructions or tunneling, and you want to see long range weapons. Next, please, because you need the long range weapons in order to shoot at the defenders, in order to activate all these siege engines. So when you look at the early bronze fortification, you see them, they are very elaborate. You have a lot of towers, bastions, you have fortified gates, you have glacis. I told you the width are up to 16 meters. And you see also constant repairs, modification, and enhancements. On the picture, you can see the three phases at Tel Yarmout in the center of Israel, which had three impressive phases. Next, please. So I analyzed 7 sites, next please, which have detailed reports and large exposures. Next. Okay, and I'll give you, well, it's short presentation, of course, so I'll give you just few things I found. For instance, in some of the sites, like 3 out of 7, the fortification does not encircle the whole site, and usually the excavator had excuses for why they don't have a wall on this side, but when there are too many examples like that, it seems suspicious. Next, please. In one site, in Bab Edra in Jordan, they also have one side which is not defended, and on the other side there is an extramural neighborhood, like outside of the wall. Next slide, please. At the side of Tel Bet Yerach, there is large gap between the towers, and they're not always positioned in the best places. Next, please. Tel Bet Yerach, we'll speak about it in a minute again. At the town of Yarmout and Ai, there is the new wall. I told you there's a lot of repairs, so they built a new wall in front of the old wall, and then they canceled the towers, so they made them internal. And as I said, the towers are needed to be a projection in order to eliminate dead spots. So it's like in later fortification, they are being canceled. Next, please. And Also, the fortifications themselves are sometimes being cancelled and sometimes they are not being replaced. And we see this in several cases. One of them is the Raccoon in Jordan. If you see on the right side, they have an elaborate, very elaborate gate structure, but in the last phase, it's been cancelled and there's a staircase that go over the wall, which is really strange. Next, please. Some of the sites are not positioned in the best topographical positions. Next, please. This is Hebron, which is also not in the best position, which is really close. And some of the sites, like Tel Bet Yerach and Bab Edra, they have a really long walls which encompass parts of the town which are not settled even. So you defend something which is empty with a long wall, which is really hard to defend. Next, please. Tel Bet Yerach is on the right and Bab Edra is on the left. And in any of the sites I checked, all of the sites I checked, there is no water source except for the Raccoon. Next, please. And if we take Tel Bet Yerach as an example, the site exhibits like a really impressive wall with a sawtooth arrangement, multiple towers in different forms, but the distance between them is very large. Some of the towers, if you can look at towers 9 and 10 at the beginning, they are both positioned on both sides of a corner. So instead of putting one tower at the corner, they build two. The wall is not always positioned in the highest ground available, and it doesn't encircle the whole town. And it's really long, so it's really hard to defend. Also, at the beginning of the early Bronze III, it seems that the town was not occupied. It was not defended because they didn't build, the old one collapsed and the new one was not built yet. Next, please. If we look at the weapons, we see there's no effective long-range weapons. We don't find arrowheads in the mainland. We see arrowheads in the desert, but in the desert there are no fortified settlements. And we can't find siege engines, few destructions, and the only clear weapon is the mace head, on which I will have also a lecture tomorrow. But there will not a real weapon, and of course not a weapon to conquer fortifications. But maybe the fortifications themselves, with the size, maybe they are the ones that prevented war, like atomic bombs in the Cold War. But still, they are too large. Next, please. There is one evidence of Levia, which is a site which is in the Golan Heights, which is a marginal zone, and it's defended by two walls of 10 and 16 meters. You can see the plan on the right side, and the gate at one stage was blocked, and there's evidence of a battle around it with mace heads and maybe with stones. Next, please. And we'll speak about it in a minute. And I know I have a few minutes more. So we have contradicted evidence. The early Bronze people put a lot of effort into the fortifications. They were very elaborate and they had a lot of rebuildings or repair. But a close look shows that not very effective, and there's also no siege engines, and especially not long-range weapons. There are also few destruction layers. Next, please. So the question is, what is the purpose of the fortification? And why did they invest so much energy into them? So I think there was some kind of a threat. Like, as you can see in Levia, as I said, it's a marginal zone and it's the only real evidence. But I think the evidence was exaggerated, and the answer for this threat was really exaggerated. Eventually on Levia, there was no siege or something. There was just a bunch of intruders that fought with mace heads over the gate. Next, please. So, if we think about the reasons for building fortification, there are a few options. There are options of boundary control and the way the town should look like, and also an image and symbol of the city. But for all of these, there's no real need for high and thick walls. There's also a reason for showing the town's strength and success to outsiders and insiders, and also deterring enemies. But also for that, you need walls that look impressive, but you don't need to invest so much in many towers and gates and stuff like that. But I think that fortification, and especially threats of war, add to the ruler's prestige and status. And this might be the reason that the exaggeration, exaggeration serve these rulers. Next, please. So the contradictory evidence with a large fortification but not suitable weapons and no other evidence leads me to the conclusion that there was some kind of a threat. The large fortification were built to show strength and to deter the enemies, but the exaggerated threat was used by the rulers to fortify their status and prestige. And without them doing that, they would have needed much smaller fortifications. This also may explain why many of the walls were left to deteriorate without maintenance until a new wall was built. And in general, like, social complexity should be tested in place. Like, in each place, social complexity takes different form. And especially in the southern Levant, it's really different from Mesopotamia, in which in the same period you had real fortification and really siege engine and siege warfare. Next, please. So thank you very much, and see you also tomorrow.
Thank you, Willie.